Hi guys, welcome back. This is Anna and this is my channel, Odom 2.0. I'm ready to just jump into a topic today because I want to try to, make this not a really long video, but I'm ready to just to jump into some really debatable hot topics that have been circulating through social media. So today I would like to talk to you about what I think about sex education in the classroom. I know that when it comes to this subject, I think I'm still more on the liberal side than the conservative side. So this might be a new side for some people to see. Bear with me. Like I said, this is all new for me. But I really think that this is something truly important to talk about and to try to get everybody on the same page with, because I think it's very, very important to talk to our children about their bodies and about what happens to their bodies as they grow. These things are exceptionally important because we need we need to be armed with knowledge on any topic, but especially sex education. And I think I want to start by saying how ridiculous I think it is that this country is so uncomfortable with talking about sex. I do understand now that I have more conservative views and I have been more on the right lately. I do understand conservative values. Okay, that is not what I'm talking about here. What I do feel is important is arming our children with appropriate education based on their age. And it starts from the moment they can communicate with you, and when they can absorb what it is that you're saying and learn from you. And yes, damn it, part of the conversation is if they're a boy or a girl. I'm sorry, I love my transgender folks. I have no, I look, what I have a problem with is trying to confuse a 3-year-old on boy girl, okay? Boy, girl. That's what we're discussing today. If y'all don't agree with that, I'm sorry. We can discuss that another day. But right now, when we're discussing sex education and age-appropriate education, yes, when our children are small, we should be the ones teaching them their body parts and what makes them male, what makes them female. And I think it should start the moment that our children are able to accept our words and understand what it is that we're saying to them. Because for me, when I say knowledge is power, I really do take that to heart. And I don't feel any differently about a 3-year-old versus a 30-year-old. And if we want to talk about having a conversation, we need to be comfortable having that conversation. So in order to build a good rapport with our children to the point that they feel comfortable coming to us about things, we have to come to them and already be comfortable. And so I think that's part of the problem, is that somewhere in the conservative mindset, not talking about sex equals safe sex. And no, we need to arm our children as early as possible with age-appropriate information. And I keep saying that because when I talk about what I feel children should be learning, oh, how dare you say a child should know this or that? Age-appropriate information, okay? And when we're talking about high school students, I think all bets are off. All bets are off at that point. All bets should pretty much be off in middle school, because when you hand your child a world, an unedited world that they can play in at any time, any place, with no rules, no restriction, no context. You see where I'm getting with this. I know you have to. If you're not going to let your kid play in Vegas at 8 years old without a supervision, why are you letting your 8-year-old play on the internet? If any of your children have a phone and have access to the internet, and you don't have 8 different locks, passwords, hoops you got to jump through just to get to certain websites, your children are probably absolutely without a doubt watching porn on their phones, on their laptops, on their tablets, on their smart TVs. So that's why when the kids get a little bit older, I find the age appropriate education to just be that rule just goes out the window. But when we're talking about small children, we still need to be educating them, but yes, more age appropriately. And I think that starts with teaching your children that they're boys or girls and teaching them their body parts. And when you get to the penis and the vagina, please stop saying vajayjay and winky and whatever words you people use in place of the proper terminology. Please stop, because that already makes the conversation uncomfortable. If you cannot comfortably say penis or vagina to your children, how do you expect your children to be comfortable saying penis or vagina back to you? Okay? Stop with the foo-foo names for your children's private parts. They have names. Use those names. Okay? So now we get to the point where we're talking to our children about their body parts and their proper names. Then you can easily start having more conversations with your children, where you can maybe recognize if something improper may or may not be happening with your child. And so that's why I say knowledge is power. If your child already has knowledge at a very young age that their body is their temple, their private place, that you have, freedom of your own space, but more specifically, your body is yours, not to be touched by anybody else. And if anybody tells you that they're going to touch you there, or tells you that whatever happens, you're not allowed to tell because your mommy will be mad at you, and all the lies that pedophiles tell their victims, if you eliminate that right off the bat, your child has a better chance, even if, God forbid, something happens and they're touched inappropriately, at least if that child has the proper terminology and can comfortably communicate to their parents, chances are that's something that's going to happen one time and then it's going to be dealt with. The bigger picture is hoping that the more you educate a child about their body and the restrictions on their body and who touches them, the greater chance they have of not becoming victims. So that's why I find it to be very, very important to start the conversation early, and for parents not to waver in confidence when discussing these things. When you're talking about elementary and maybe middle school, it's so hard to tell. Back when I was in school, it was junior high, and now it's middle school. So now you have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade versus 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. But even still, then I think, again, if your child has a cell phone, you pretty much need to be as open as possible about sex and education, because if you don't do it, trust me, somebody's teaching them, and chances are it's someone like Stormy Daniels. Yeah, we don't want those to be our children's role models, or the ones that teach us or teach our children about sex. So if you don't want, Pornhub educating your kids on sex, maybe you should make sure you have some good restrictions on those phones, or maybe you should actually start having an open communication and dialogue with your child about sex, so that way it's you they're coming to, and it's not the internet or a boyfriend or their friend from up the street, giving them the information that you have that you could have been giving them the whole time. Again, yes, I agree in age appropriate information, but again, I also believe that kids today are they have access to things that I think a lot of parents still want to be in denial over. I was having a conversation online about what I felt was appropriate and not appropriate, and I guess at this middle school or high school, this video was talking about blowjobs and talking about anal sex and just a lot of what used to be kind of taboo conversation. And these people were appalled. Like, how dare they talk to my kid about stuff like that? And you know what I had to say to this person? And I hope that they took my words and really researched what I said and just didn't take for granted that I was just trying to say something nasty. But I told this person, I was like, you do realize that most high school students are having anal sex because they think that doesn't take away their virginity. They don't think it's real sex. And he came back with like, oh, you're crazy, you're a sicko, and, you know, kids aren't doing that, and, where do you live? And, you know, what kind of person are you to say stuff like that? Like, attacking me because I said, we have uneducated children who believe anal sex is not real sex, and as long as it's not in the vagina, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not going to get any diseases. They're still going to be considered virgins. So I'm sorry if your kid is, you know, having anal sex because they don't think that it's real sex. You have missed the mark on when it's time to start talking to your kids about real sex acts. And I'm sorry, but we're not a missionary nation. Like, you know, like, we're not all just doing missionary sex and that's all you need to be concerned with, and everything else you're just supposed to figure out when you're married. No, that isn't, no. I think half the reasons why a lot of marriages end is first, of course, it's usually money. But then right behind it is there's some kind of breakdown in communication, and sex becomes an issue. Well, if you're already comfortable talking about sex, and you're already a comfortable, confident person because your parents raised you to be comfortable and confident in your sexuality, your sexual needs and wants, then you're better prepared to be in a relationship because now you can easily discuss these things with your partner. Instead of going out and paying the hooker because you know she'll just do anything you want because she's paid. You could be having these same kind of fun romps in the bedroom with your significant other if you were just comfortable enough to talk to them about your needs, right? So that's why I feel like it's so important at such a young age we start to develop this conversation with our children. So as they grow, the conversation grows. And as the conversation grows and maturity comes and you have communication and you know the desires that you have, and you're taught that different levels of being turned on are acceptable, and that there's not just one position of sex, and you can freely discuss these things with your partner, it leads for a completely open, wonderful relationship, because now you don't have to keep it inside. You don't have to keep it from the very person you lay in bed next to every night. You don't have to take your sexual fantasies and pay some hooker because you're afraid to tell your wife, you know, the things that you like in bed. And same for women. So many women will just lead a very unsatisfying sex life in their marriage because they simply just don't want to communicate to their partner the things that would make them happy. Because people still treat a lot of sexual fantasies as taboo. And B, because they were never taught to be able to talk about these things without just this burden of uncomfortability weighing on them. And I can speak from that because I'm I was like that. I think I'm probably still like that a little bit, but that's just because of conditioning. There's certain things that I wasn't taught to freely talk about. So for me, it takes practice. But for our children, it could be so natural if we just took a more natural approach. And so when this conversation happened online and I started to see exactly how insulted people were by knowledge, kind of scared me a little bit, guys, because it's 2018. First of all, we're born into this world naked. Okay, it is the most natural thing in the world to not have clothes on, but people in this country still act like nudity is such an unspoken topic. We don't talk about nudity. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk. No, we should be talking about these things. It's who we should be talking about these things to, and we should be not acknowledging our children and making them a part of the conversation so that they can grow to be adults who are still very comfortable in communicating about sex. And when you get into high school and you're doing all this experimenting, I think the more knowledge, the less experimentation. I feel like if you take away the mystery, you kind of take away the excitement. So through knowledge is power, and through that power you can actually raise a child who is a product of the things you taught them, and they can be very well versed in all subjects, including sex, and still come out of it graduating a virgin, having very strong values connected to their sexual desires and decisions. Arming children with this information isn't going to turn them into whores, okay? I hate to be vulgar and mean, but a lot of our teenage boys and girls are already whores. And a lot of parents are still not going out of their way to have an honest conversation, and they're not starting the conversation early enough. And then we have all of this experimentation because nobody's talking to them about anything. So removing the mystery and gaining knowledge and power through that knowledge, you can't go wrong. But you can certainly screw a kid up pretty bad by not talking to them about anything, throwing them out into the world where more than just people like you exist. You have just the whole world of people, and you shove that kid out into the world, not have communicated to them about just the most natural thing, and that natural thing turns into the most uncomfortable thing, and then it's just this endless cycle of grown-ups who don't know how to talk to each other about the most natural and one of the more exciting things about a relationship, and that's how sex isn't just for procreation. As humans, we also have sex for pleasure. And it's okay if you like getting tickled in the butt. It's okay if you like, getting touched behind the ear. You have to be told that the things that turn you on and make you feel sexual are okay to feel. And once you know it's okay to feel that way, and once you know that you can be open and honest, I think it just opens up the world so much more. And it absolutely helps progress a relationship. So I don't think that there's anything bad that comes from educating our children about sex. But I do agree that the conversation should be age appropriate until 13, 14 years old. At that point, I do think all the limits are off the table, and you should be talking to your kid about everything. And when I say everything, I put them in front of that damn laptop that they're just wanting to be in front of all day, and you show them what herpes looks like. Show them what syphilis looks like. Show them what chlamydia looks like. You show them those pictures of those diseases and what happens to people who have sex unprotected, what happens to people who have sex without condoms, birth control. I mean, if we're having this conversation, do you know how many different things we have the potential to fix in this world? Like unwanted pregnancies, abortions. I mean, who wants to put their 16-year-old through getting pregnant by some guy on a one-night stand, and now she has to suffer the experience of getting an abortion when you could have easily just been having a conversation with your child this whole time that would have helped them make easier, more confident decisions. So when it comes to sex education, I am all aboard for it. I still feel like there's still too many parents out there who don't want to take on that responsibility and just expect the world to teach it to them. And unfortunately, we all have the world at our fingertips on our phone. So even if you don't think your child knows about something, chances are, if you look at their browser history, they know a lot more than you think. So when it comes to sex education in school, if you do not want the school to be the primary fact giver in that situation, I think you need to start having that conversation at home, and it needs to start very early. And again, stop teaching your kid that their vaginas and penises are hoo-hoos and ha-has. Okay? I think once we eliminate that, we've made a nice, clear path to having a comfortable conversation. And I think that's the most important thing in society, is that we can have comfortable conversation, not just about sex, about anything. But in terms of our kids and what they're learning these days, you absolutely have to take your cue from the power you have given your child. And that's by giving them a phone with access to unlimited internet. And trust me, I'm sure a lot of you don't want to do it, but when I'm done with this video, y'all better go check your kids' phone's history. Y'all might be surprised at what you find. So again, to those who feel the whole sex education should not exist and that these are for home conversations, I'm sorry, that time is over. That time is just over. You no longer have control over that. So the best way to do is get in front of it, be a part of it, and be the primary fact giver in that situation, and be the one that your kids can come and talk to about anything. And they'll be okay, I promise. So that's what I think about sex education in the classroom. Tell me what you think. Disagree, agree, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with another hot topic burning up the internet. Bye, guys.